They were a couple who seemed to have it all. Children, lavish holidays, expensive jewelry, designer clothes, and a lifestyle many could only dream of. But behind the glamour and wealth, darkness brewed. What could drive someone to trade a life of luxury for a chilling betrayal? What twisted motive led a woman to orchestrate the brutal 2-hour torture and murder of the man she once called her husband? In 2008, Thomas Campbell was working a steady full-time job, but stability wasn't enough. He wanted more. Without warning, he quit, walking away from the daily grind and turning instead to government benefits. Alongside him was his wife, Coleen, who, despite also claiming income support, quietly continued working 16 hours a week at a local clothing store. On paper, their lifestyle should have been modest, but in reality, it was anything but. The couple flaunted a fleet of brand new high-performance cars, all with personalized number plates, an Audi A3, a Mercedes C63, a BMW X5. They lived like they had nothing to hide. Their holidays were just as extravagant. Luxury 10-night getaways to Cancun, Mexico, worth over £10,000. Other lavish escapes took them to Bulgaria and Gran Canaria. Their wardrobes told the same story. Designer clothes, high-end jewelry, and expensive tastes that far exceeded their declared income. This lavish lifestyle carried on for nearly 5 years, unchecked, unbothered, and seemingly unstoppable. But in 2014, the facade began to crumble. Greater Manchester Police launched Operation Harness, a major investigation targeting the Campbells and their suspected involvement in cocaine supply across the Clayton area of Manchester. As the investigation intensified, the pressure mounted. Something shifted. Thomas began to feel it, that creeping sensation of being watched. He knew the game was up. In a last-ditch effort to throw off suspicion, the gym-going, heavily built Campbell suddenly rebranded himself, officially declaring he was a self-employed fitness instructor. But it was too little, too late. GMP's Operation Challenger had already connected the dots. Behind the gym routines and Instagram-worthy lifestyle, Thomas was part of a much bigger network, one deeply embedded in the supply and distribution of cocaine. Then came the raid. The illusion shattered. The Campbell household, once the image of flashy success, became the latest target in a sweeping crackdown on Manchester's drug trade. In 2019, the law finally caught up with the Campbells. Thomas Campbell was sentenced to 2 years in prison after pleading guilty to money laundering. His wife, Coleen, also admitted to the same charge and received a 16-month sentence. By 2021, both were out of prison, but their once glamorous life was long gone. The cracks that had formed over the years had split wide open. Coleen had discovered the ultimate betrayal. Thomas had been sleeping with one of her close friends. Furious and humiliated, she confronted him. What followed was explosive. A bitter, messy argument that marked the end of their relationship. Years of luxury, lies, and loyalty dissolved in a single moment. The couple who once flaunted their wealth to the world went their separate ways. But the story was far from over. In fact, the darkest chapter was still to come. In a twisted turn of events, Coleen Campbell found herself aligning with an unlikely accomplice. John Belfield, the ex-boyfriend of the same woman Thomas had been having an affair with. Both betrayed, both seething, and both hungry for revenge. When Belfield learned of the affair, his fury matched Coleen's. Their shared hatred for Thomas brought them together, and within days, what began as an exchange of messages on Instagram quickly escalated into a sinister alliance. The plan was chilling. A carefully orchestrated ambush to rob Thomas of cash, drugs, and anything of value. But it was never just about money. This was personal. This was payback. Coleen, Once Thomas's wife became a key player in the plot, she handed over crucial information. His routines, his whereabouts, exact times and places they could find him, down to the minute. With that, Belfield began assembling his crew. He brought in Stephen Cleworth and Rhys Stephen, each with a role to play. Cleworth was given a particularly invasive task. He was sent to Thomas's daughter's school. As Thomas picked up his child, Cleworth discreetly placed a GPS tracker on his van, a move that would ultimately lead the gang straight to his front door. The trap had been set. The countdown to murder had begun. While the plot to ambush Thomas Campbell was unfolding, Coleen Campbell was already knee-deep in violence elsewhere. Fueled by anger and loyalty to a friend, she led a brutal attack on a woman accused of sleeping with her friend's boyfriend, a conflict that wasn't even hers to begin with. But that didn't stop her. Alongside 3 associates, including 2 other women, Coleen pulled up in a car, ready for war. CCTV footage captured the group as they exited the vehicle, each armed with a weapon. Coleen, with chilling confidence, clutched a hammer. What followed was a 90-second frenzy of violence. The victim was ambushed, struck, and overwhelmed in a savage group assault. It was only when bystanders intervened, horrified by what they were witnessing, that the attackers were forced to back off and flee the scene. It was a shocking show of aggression, revealing just how volatile and dangerous Coleen had become, a warning sign of the violence that was still to come. The plan was now in motion. After days of surveillance, watching Thomas's movements and tracking his every step, the crew John Belfield had assembled was ready to strike. They had observed him, studied his habits, and waited for the perfect moment. As Thomas unlocked the door to his own home, unaware of the danger just feet away, the attackers crept up and ambushed him. He was dragged inside and subjected to a prolonged 2-hour ordeal of unimaginable cruelty. They stabbed him, they punched him, they stomped on him with brutal force. Then, stripping him of all his clothing except his socks, they turned him face down and poured scalding hot kettle water onto his bare skin, specifically onto his buttocks. It was a savage and degrading act. By the time the attackers fled the scene, Thomas Campbell was barely clinging to life. Left alone in the hallway of his own home, he succumbed to a staggering 61 injuries. The next morning, his lifeless body was discovered by neighbors. The scene they walked into was one of horror.
Ambulance emergency, tell me exactly what's happened.
Hi, sorry, I'm a bit in shock. There's a guy's body lying here. There's loads of kids living on the street. I really don't want them to see any of this.
Despite playing a key role in the brutal murder of Thomas Campbell, Coleen Campbell took to social media to play the grieving widow, a chilling act of deception. She posted heartfelt tributes, including one that read, 13 years and 2 beautiful children. Forever grateful. I would do anything to hear your giddy laugh or your non-stop moaning just one more time. She flooded her accounts with similar messages, crafting an image of heartbreak and loss. All the while, she worked behind the scenes, helping to organize Thomas's memorial and even attending, standing side by side with his mourning family, feigning sorrow while concealing her guilt. But the truth was closing in. Within just 2 weeks of the murder, Greater Manchester Police had already tracked down their first suspect, Stephen Cleworth. He was arrested and charged with conspiracy to murder 38-year-old Thomas Campbell. The ringleader, John Belfield, fled the country, and police initially believed he had escaped to the Spanish island of Tenerife. But the manhunt stretched far wider. On March 23, 2023, Belfield was found hiding in Suriname, where local authorities arrested him and began preparing him for extradition. Another key figure, Reese Stephen, was also swept up in the investigation. Although he wasn't present during the murder, confirmed to be intoxicated at a swingers club during the attack, he had played a crucial role in the lead-up and planning. For his involvement, he was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum term of 12 years. Belfield, once returned to the UK, was arrested at Manchester Airport and charged. He pleaded not guilty and is currently remanded in custody, awaiting trial on June 3, 2025. Police confirm that one suspect remains at large. As for Coleen, she initially slipped through the cracks. She cried with Thomas's family, told them she still loved him, embraced them in shared grief, all while knowing the truth. But then, in a bizarre and damning twist, she revealed her hand. Speaking with Thomas's mother, Coleen shared gruesome, specific details about the murder, details that had not yet been made public. When questioned about how she knew, she claimed Thomas had visited her from beyond the grave, and that a spiritual friend had passed the information on from his ghost. It was the final straw. Thomas's mother went straight to the police. The act was up. Coleen's mask had finally slipped, and justice was closing in. She was arrested and brought to trial, facing the most serious charge of all, murder. But after a lengthy courtroom battle, the jury found her not guilty of murder, instead convicting her of manslaughter. Despite her attempts to downplay her role, the police investigation revealed just how deeply involved she had been. It became clear that she was a key architect of the plan that led to her ex-husband's brutal death. Investigators discovered she had full knowledge of the GPS tracker placed on Thomas's van, a device that led the killers directly to him. It was believed she had also been the one to reveal which school he picked up his daughter from, a damning detail that only someone close to him would know. Police seized CCTV footage from her home that sealed her fate. It showed Coleen on the phone with John Belfield discussing the plan. They were seen meeting in person too, talking for over 30 minutes. The attack was carefully plotted. When questioned, Coleen claimed she never intended for Thomas to die, insisting the plan was simply to steal 2 Rolex watches. But those watches were never found, and her explanation did little to soften the gravity of her involvement. The court handed her a 12-year prison sentence, with Coleen ordered to serve 2/3 of that behind bars before becoming eligible for release. Once a mother and wife living a life of luxury, she now faces years locked away for a betrayal as cold as it was calculated.